The final battle for the galaxy raged for 18 hours. Lieutenant Hai Wan, her consciousness now merged with the quantum defense network, coordinated the movements of 50,000 ships as if they were parts of her own body. Through her expanded awareness, she could feel everything. The determination of human crews fighting for their homeworld, the fierce pride of Krell warriors defending their honor, the logical precision of Kristark minds calculating the perfect moment to strike, the collective unity of Zix hive drones working as one. Every species brought their greatest strengths to the battle. But the Void Devourers were learning faster than anyone had expected. Their ships had already adapted to most of the galaxy's weapons. Worse, they had begun to understand the quantum network that connected the defense fleet. "They're trying to hack into our communications," reported Dr. Sumin from the command center. "If they break through, they could turn our own coordination system against us." Admiral Young-Soo watched the tactical displays with growing concern. Despite their early success, the sheer number of enemy ships was overwhelming. For every Void Devourer vessel they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Dark Fleet seemed endless. "Hey Wan, how much longer can you maintain the network?" he asked. Her voice came from speakers throughout the command center, but it sounded different now. More distant, as if she was speaking from very far away. "The connection is stable, Admiral. But I can feel them trying to break in. They're using some kind of psychic attack to disrupt the quantum links." That was the moment everyone realized the true horror of their enemy. The Void Devourers were not just technologically advanced. They were telepathic predators who could attack minds directly. In space, the battle reached a critical point. Captain Subin's battle group had been fighting continuously for hours. Her ship was damaged, half her crew was injured, and ammunition was running low. But they kept fighting because there was no alternative. "Captain," called her Velthari tactical officer, "enemy reinforcements approaching from the outer system. At least 5,000 more ships." Subin felt her heart sink. They had already been outnumbered. Now the odds were becoming impossible. But she looked around at her mixed-species crew and saw the same determination in every face, no matter what world they came from. "All weapons, continue firing. All crew, maintain positions. We hold the line here." Similar scenes were playing out across the entire fleet. Damaged ships refusing to retreat. Exhausted crews continuing to fight. Species that had been enemies a month ago now dying to protect each other. But the most important battle was happening inside the quantum network itself. Hay-1 could feel the Void Devourers' psychic attacks trying to break her connection to the fleet. Their minds were alien and terrible, focused on nothing but consumption and destruction. "They've been doing this for millions of years," she whispered to Dr. Sumin. "Galaxy after galaxy, they've perfected the art of breaking civilizations apart. They know how to turn our greatest strengths into weaknesses. Can you resist them? Not alone." "But I'm not alone, am I?" That was when Haiwan realized something the Void Devourers had not expected. The quantum network was not just connecting ships and weapons. It was connecting minds. Every human operator in the system, every alien crew member linked to the network, every consciousness that had chosen to fight for the galaxy's survival. "Dr. Sumin, I need you to do something," Hay-1 said urgently. "Open the network to full connection. Not just the military personnel, but everyone. Every human on Earth, every alien in the fleet, every mind that wants to help. That's incredibly dangerous. The network was never designed for that many connections. It could overload and destroy everyone linked to it. Or it could give us the strength we need to win." Dr. Sumin looked around the command center at the other operators. They were already pushing their minds beyond safe limits, but they nodded their agreement. If this was their last chance, they would take it. "Opening network to full galactic connection," she announced. What happened next had never occurred before in the history of the universe. Billions of minds across the galaxy suddenly found themselves connected. Humans in underground shelters on Earth, Velthari warriors on distant battleships, Kristark colonies calculating mathematical solutions, aquatic tribes swimming in their water-filled ships, the collective consciousness of the Zix, gas cloud beings from the nebula reaches, even species that had never fought wars before, all of them. thinking together, planning together, fighting together as one enormous mind. The effect on the battle was immediate and incredible. Ships began to move with impossible precision. Weapons fired in perfect synchronization. Damaged vessels were repaired by crews who suddenly understood technologies they had never seen before. But most importantly, the psychic attacks of the Void Devourers, which had been designed to break individual minds, became useless against a consciousness that spanned an entire galaxy. "They can't adapt to this," High One said, her voice now speaking for billions. "They've never faced a galaxy that truly fought as one. Every time they learn to counter one tactic, we develop 1,000 new ones." The tide of battle turned decisively. Void Devourer ships that had seemed invincible began to fall in massive numbers. Their adaptive intelligence, so effective against separate civilizations, could not keep up with the creative power of an entire galaxy, thinking in unison. Admiral Young Su watched the tactical displays with amazement. "They're retreating. After millions of years of conquest, the Void Devourers are actually retreating." But Hei Wan, connected to sensors throughout the galaxy, could see something more. "No, Admiral. They're not just retreating from us. We've shown them something they never expected to find." Through the quantum network, the combined consciousness of the galaxy reached out beyond their own spiral arm. They could sense other galaxies in the distance, some already consumed by the Void Devourers, others still fighting hopeless battles against the Dark Fleet. "We can help them," Haiwan realized. "The network we built, the unity we achieved, we can share it with other galaxies. We can teach them to fight back." Captain Subin, still aboard her damaged battleship, felt the truth of this through the network connection. Humanity's greatest gift had never been their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to bring others together, to find common ground between different species, to build cooperation where only conflict had existed before. The Void Devourers had expected to find another divided galaxy, easy to conquer by turning civilizations against each other. Instead, they found something they had never encountered, a galaxy that had learned to think and fight as one. As the enemy fleet disappeared into the darkness between galaxies, the network began to stabilize. The immediate danger was over, but the connections between minds remained. Humanity had given the galaxy something more valuable than victory in a single battle. They had given them permanent unity. Ambassador Teho stood in the council chambers, but this time he was not alone. Representatives from every species were linked through quantum communicators that allowed them to share thoughts and feelings directly. Decisions that once took weeks of argument could now be made in minutes of true understanding. "The Void Devourers will return someday," he said to the assembled aliens. "They'll bring more ships, better weapons, new strategies designed to counter what we've built. But they will never again find us divided." Dr. Su-min worked to establish permanent communication links with distant galaxies. The quantum network could stretch across millions of light years, carrying the knowledge of how to unite different species in common cause. And Lieutenant Hei Wan, forever changed by her merger with the network, became the first director of Galactic Consciousness. Her individual human life was gone, but she had become something greater, the living embodiment of cooperation between all intelligent species. In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed itself again. Not into a weapon this time, but into a beacon. Other galaxies, facing their own encounters with the Void Devourers, received messages teaching them how to unite their civilizations. The silence that had once terrified everyone became a symbol of hope. When Earth fell silent, it was not because humanity had abandoned the galaxy. It was because they were preparing to save it. And in the years that came after, when young beings from 100 different worlds learned their history, they remembered the lesson. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from speaking, but from knowing when to listen. Not from fighting alone, but from finding ways to fight together. The galaxy had learned to speak with one voice. And that voice would echo across the universe, teaching others that even the darkest enemies could be defeated when civilizations chose unity over division. Earth's silence was over. But its greatest message had just begun. 6 weeks had passed since Earth first went silent. Now the galaxy's greatest fleet surrounded the Sol system, waiting for an enemy that had never been defeated. Admiral Young-Soo stood in the Quantum Command Center deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, hundreds of humans sat connected to the defense network through neural interfaces. Their minds were linked to every ship, every weapon, every sensor in the massive fleet above. The transformation was complete. The Sol system had become a fortress unlike anything ever built. Jupiter pulsed with artificial energy, its moons bristling with weapon arrays that could destroy planets. Mars served as a coordination hub, its geometric patterns channeling information between distant battle groups. The asteroid belt had been converted into millions of connected platforms, each one capable of generating incredible amounts of power. But the real strength of the defense was not in the weapons or shields. It was in the unprecedented cooperation between species that had never fully trusted each other before. Captain Subin commanded a mixed crew aboard the battleship Harmony. Her tactical officer was a Velthari, whose forearms could operate multiple weapon systems simultaneously. Her navigator was a Christarch whose silicon-based mind could calculate hyperspace jumps faster than any computer. Her communications officer was from the Zix Collective, able to coordinate with dozens of other ships through the hive mind network. All ships report ready status, Subin announced to the fleet. Quantum links are stable. Defense grid is at full power. Similar reports came from battle groups throughout the system. The aquatic tribes had positioned their water-filled ships near Jupiter, ready to use the gas giant's gravitational field to accelerate their torpedoes. The Krell Empire's heavy battleships formed a defensive wall around Earth itself. Even species that rarely involved themselves in galactic affairs had sent their best ships and crews. In the command center, Dr. Sumin monitored the quantum consciousness network that connected everything together. The human volunteers who operated the system were pushing the limits of what minds could safely handle. Some had already begun showing signs of permanent neural changes. Lieutenant Haiwan was among the most deeply connected operators. Her consciousness was spread across dozens of ships, coordinating their movements like a conductor directing an orchestra. She could feel every sensor, every weapon, every shield generator, as if they were part of her own body. Dr. Sumin, she said, her voice strangely distant, I'm detecting gravitational disturbances at the edge of the system. They're here. The moment everyone had been preparing for had finally arrived. On screens throughout the fleet, the first Void Devourer ships appeared. They were even more massive than the sensor readings had suggested, dark shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. Ambassador Tae-ho, who had returned to Earth to help coordinate the defense, watched from the diplomatic observation deck. Representatives from every major species stood with him, witnessing what might be the last battle their civilizations would ever fight. How many ships? Asked the Velthari ambassador. Our sensors are having trouble getting accurate counts, replied Chief Technician Jae-won. The enemy vessels seem to interfere with our scanning systems, but initial estimates suggest at least 10,000 large ships with millions of smaller craft. The numbers were staggering. The galaxy's combined fleet numbered about 50,000 ships, which had seemed like an incredible force. But they were outnumbered by enemies whose technology was millions of years more advanced. Admiral Young-Soo activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice reached every ship, every crew member, every species fighting together for the first time in galactic history. This is Admiral Young-Soo speaking to all forces. The enemy has arrived in greater numbers than we expected. Our weapons are untested against their technology. Our defenses have never faced an opponent like this. But we have one advantage they do not expect. He paused, looking around at the human operators who were risking their minds to coordinate the defense. We fight together. Every species in this galaxy, every different way of thinking, every unique strength, all united for the first time. The Void Devourers have destroyed thousands of galaxies, but they have never faced a galaxy that stood as one. The battle began slowly. The Void Devourer ships moved with deliberate precision, testing the outer defenses with small probes. These scout vessels were larger than most battleships, but they fell quickly to concentrated fire from the combined fleet. But as the probes were destroyed, something terrible became clear. The enemy ships seemed to learn from each attack. Their shields adapted to resist the weapons that had damaged earlier vessels. Their tactics evolved to counter the strategies that had worked before. "They're using some kind of collective intelligence," reported Da Yun from the science station. "Every ship they lose teaches the others how to defend against our attacks." Engineer Dong Su had a worse realization. "It's not just intelligence. They're absorbing our technology. Look at these energy signatures. Those ships are now using modified versions of our own weapons." The main assault began an hour after the first probe attacks. Thousands of Void Devourer ships advanced in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. The space around Earth filled with energy beams, missile swarms, and gravitational weapons that twisted the fabric of space itself. Captain Subin led her battle group in a desperate charge against the enemy's left flank. The mixed crews aboard her ships worked with incredible coordination, their different abilities combining in ways that surprised even themselves. "Velthari weapons officer, target their energy projectors," she commanded. "Christarch navigator, calculate jump coordinates to put us behind their formation. 6 communications, coordinate with battle groups 7 through 12 for simultaneous attack." The battle raged across the entire solar system. Near Jupiter, the gas giants modified. Structure fired energy beams the size of continents. The asteroid belt platforms created a network of crossfire that could destroy anything that approached Earth directly. Mars coordinated millions of smaller defense systems, each one adding to the incredible volume of fire directed at the invaders. But the Void Devourers kept adapting. Their ships began to move in patterns that avoided the worst of the defensive fire. Their weapons evolved to penetrate shields that had seemed impenetrable. Worst of all, they began to target the quantum communication links that connected the galaxy's forces. In the command center, Lieutenant Heiwan felt the network starting to fail as enemy attacks disrupted the connections between ships. The careful coordination that had been their greatest advantage was falling apart. "Dr. Sumin, the quantum links are failing," she reported. "I'm losing contact with battle groups throughout the fleet. Can you compensate?" "Only by deepening my connection to the network. But if I do that..." Heiwan paused, understanding the implications. "If I do that, I won't be able to disconnect. My consciousness will become part of the system permanently." Dr. Sumin felt the weight of the decision. Asking someone to sacrifice their individual existence was almost unthinkable. But without the quantum network, the combined fleet would become just a collection of separate ships, easy prey for the adaptive enemy. "Lieutenant, the choice is yours," she said quietly. Haiwan looked around the command center at the other operators, many of whom were already pushing the limits of safe neural connection. She thought about her family, her friends, her life on Earth that she would never experience again. Then she thought about the billions of people throughout the galaxy who were depending on them to win this battle. "Increase quantum connection to maximum," she said firmly. "All frequencies, all networks. Connect me to everything." The neural interface activated, flooding Haiwan's mind with information from across the galaxy. She could feel every ship, every weapon, every crew member fighting in the battle. Her individual consciousness began to merge with the quantum computers that controlled the defense system. But instead of losing herself in the network, something incredible happened. Her human ability to coordinate and communicate was amplified by the quantum systems. She became the living nervous system of the entire galactic fleet. "All ships, this is fleet coordination." Her voice echoed from speakers throughout the galaxy. "I can see everything the enemy is doing. I can predict their moves. Follow my commands exactly." Under Heiwan's guidance, the tide of battle began to turn. Ships that had been fighting separately began to move as parts of a single organism. Weapons fired in perfect timing to overwhelm enemy defenses. Damaged vessels were protected while others took their place in the formation. For the first time since the battle began, the Void Devourers started taking serious losses. Their adaptive intelligence was impressive, but it could not keep up with the creativity and intuition of human consciousness amplified by quantum technology. The galaxy was fighting back, and the universe's greatest predators were learning what it meant to face a prey that refused to surrender. 1 month had passed since Earth first went silent, and the galaxy was falling apart. Captain Haijin stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, holding the most important message in the history of their civilization. The great hall buzzed with tension. The Krell Empire was at war with the aquatic tribes. The Zix Collective had taken over 12 neutral systems. 3 separate trade wars had broken out in sectors that humans used to keep peaceful. Fear and anger filled the air like poison. Ambassador Teho had called this emergency meeting, but many species had refused to send their leaders. They thought the humans were trying to trick them somehow. After a month of silence, trust between the species was almost gone. "You have been gone for 1 month," the Velthari ambassador said, his forearms moving in angry gestures. 1 month while the galaxy burns with conflict. Now you return with stories of invisible enemies and ask for our help? Hyejin had expected this reaction. The truth was so incredible that she barely believed it herself. But the evidence was real and time was running out. "Show them the recordings," she said to Chief Technician Jaewon. Jaewon activated the holographic display system. Images filled the air above the council chamber, showing the transformed Sol system in all its impossible glory. The connected platforms, the energy networks, the geometric patterns that covered entire planets. The alien ambassadors fell silent. Even the most advanced species in the galaxy had never built anything on this scale. The transformation of an entire solar system was beyond their imagination. "This is what humanity built while you were gone," Hyejin said. "Not to conquer other worlds, not to gain power over the galaxy. We built it to save everyone." She showed them the deep space sensor data that revealed the approaching Void Devourer fleet, the massive ships that could destroy planets, the dark energy signatures that had consumed other galaxies, the clear path of destruction that led directly toward their home. "Impossible," buzzed the Zix Collective's translator drone. "No force can destroy entire galaxies. Your sensors are malfunctioning." "That's exactly what we hoped you would say 18 months ago," Hyejin replied. "We brought this evidence to the council then. Every species dismissed it as human paranoia or faulty equipment, so we decided to prepare alone." Dr. Sumin's recorded message played for the council. Her tired voice explained the science behind the threat, using terms that most species could understand. The quantum signatures of the Void Devourers, the gravitational disruption they caused, the pattern of empty space they left behind. But even with all the evidence, many aliens remained skeptical. The Christarchs chimed musical notes that meant doubt. The gas cloud beings from the nebula reaches pulsed with colors that showed confusion. "Even if your enemy exists," the Velthari ambassador said, "why should we trust you? You abandoned the galaxy when we needed you most. Wars started because humans were not here to keep peace." That was the hardest part for Hyejin to accept. Earth's silence had caused real suffering. Species that had lived in peace for centuries were now killing each other. Trade networks had collapsed. Fear ruled where cooperation once existed. "We know the price of our silence," she said, "but we had no choice. If the Void Devourers had detected our preparations, they might have changed their approach or sent advance forces to stop us. The secrecy was necessary for everyone's survival." Ambassador Teho stood up. After a month of losing authority and watching the galaxy descend into chaos, he finally had something real to offer. "The Void Devourers will arrive in 5 weeks," he said. "Earth's defense system is powerful, but it cannot protect the entire galaxy alone. We need every species to contribute ships, weapons, and personnel. This is not a human war. This is a fight for the survival of all life in our galaxy." The debate that followed was heated and confused. Some species wanted to see more proof. Others demanded to know why humans had not shared the threat earlier. A few accused Earth of inventing the whole story to regain control over galactic affairs. But slowly, the evidence began to convince them. The Christarchs were the first to change their minds. Their silicon-based intellects, could process the sensor data faster than organic brains, and they quickly understood that the threat was real. Mathematical analysis confirms probability of galaxy-ending event, they announced in their musical language. Crystarch civilization pledges support to defense effort. The aquatic tribes agreed to pause their war with the Krell Empire. Their representatives gurgled urgent communications with their homeworld, then announced that all aquatic military forces would join the defense fleet. One by one, other species began to pledge their support. It was not complete trust. Too much damage had been done for that, but it was hope, and that was enough to start rebuilding cooperation. Meanwhile, back in the Sol system, the transformation continued at an incredible pace. Captain Subin oversaw the evacuation of Earth's major cities. Billions of humans were moving to underground facilities that could survive even if the planet's surface was destroyed. The work was exhausting and frightening, but humanity had faced impossible challenges before. They were good at working together when survival was at stake. Every person had a job and everyone understood how important their work was. Admiral Young Su coordinated the integration of alien technologies with Earth's defense systems. As species pledged their support, they sent technical specifications for their most advanced weapons and shields. Human engineers worked around the clock to incorporate these technologies into their quantum-linked defense grid. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Dai-un, working with Velthari scientists, discovered that humanity had a unique biological trait. Human brains could interface directly with quantum consciousness networks in ways that other species could not. It's our adaptability, Dai-un explained in a report to Admiral Young-Su. Humans evolved to work in groups, to coordinate complex activities, to share information quickly. Our neural networks are naturally compatible with the quantum systems we've built. This discovery changed everything. Instead of just contributing ships and weapons, the alien species could link their technologies directly to human operators. A Velthari battleship could be controlled by a human pilot, who shared consciousness with the ship's artificial intelligence. 6 collective hive drones could coordinate with human tactical officers. The combined fleet that began assembling around Earth was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from dozens of different species, all linked through quantum networks controlled by human consciousness. Weapons systems that combined the best technology from hundreds of worlds. But even with all this preparation, everyone knew the battle would be desperate. The Void Devourers had destroyed thousands of galaxies over millions of years. They had faced every possible type of resistance and overcome it all. Deep in Earth's Quantum Command Center, Dr. Su Mian worked with a team of volunteers on the most dangerous part of the defense plan. The quantum consciousness link allowed humans to coordinate the entire defense fleet, but it came with a terrible risk. If the link remained active for too long, or if too much information flowed through it at once, the human operators could lose their individual consciousness permanently. They would become part of the network forever, their minds merged with the quantum computers that controlled the defense systems. Lieutenant Haiwan was one of the volunteers. She had studied the risks and accepted them without hesitation. "If my consciousness can save the galaxy," she said, "then it's a good trade." Similar preparations were happening throughout human space. On Mars, Tactical Officer Jiwoo coordinated evacuation plans for civilian populations. On Jupiter's moons, Chief Engineer Minwoo oversaw the final installation of planet-sized weapon arrays. Every human in the galaxy understood what they were facing. In 5 weeks, an enemy that had never been defeated would arrive at their doorstep. The preparations they had made in secret would finally be tested. But as the combined fleet grew larger and the defense systems came online, something unexpected happened. The galaxy began to come together in ways it never had before. Species that had been enemies for centuries worked side by side. Technologies that had been jealously guarded secrets were shared freely. The Void Devourers had intended to find a galaxy divided by conflict and weakened by fear. Instead, they would face something they had never encountered before. A galaxy united by hope and protected by the greatest defense system ever built. The silence was almost over. Soon, Earth would speak again. And when it did, its voice would carry the strength of an entire galaxy. Captain Haye-Jin could not believe what she was seeing. The new Busan drifted slowly through the outer reaches of the Sol system, and everywhere she looked, humanity had built something incredible. The asteroid belt was gone. Not destroyed, but transformed. Millions of rocks that had orbited between Mars and Jupiter for billions of years had been turned into a vast network of connected platforms. Metal and stone had been shaped into geometric patterns that stretched across space like a giant spider web. "Dongsu, are you getting energy readings from those structures?" Hae-Jin asked. Her engineer stared at his instruments in amazement. "Captain, the power levels are incredible. Each platform is generating more energy than a small star. And they're all connected, sharing power through some kind of energy beam system. How is that possible? Humans don't have that kind of technology." "We didn't have it 2 weeks ago," Dongsu replied. "But this is definitely human engineering. I can recognize the design patterns, the way the structures are built. This is our work, but it's far beyond anything I've ever seen." Da-un pointed to another display showing Jupiter and its moons. "Look at this. They've done something to the gas giant, too." Jupiter looked wrong. The massive planet still spun in its orbit, but its colorful bands of gas had been replaced by perfectly straight lines of energy. The planet pulsed with a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat that could be seen from millions of miles away. "They've turned Jupiter into some kind of machine," Kyung-ho said. "But what does it do?" "I don't know," Da-un replied. "But look at the moons. Europa, Ganymede, Io, Callisto. They're all connected to the planet by energy streams. It's like they're part of one giant system." Communications Officer Minho had been trying to contact Earth since they arrived in the system. So far, he had received no response to any of his messages, but his instruments were picking up something strange. "Captain, I'm detecting signals," he reported. "Not radio waves like we normally use. Something else. Something more advanced." "Can you decode them?" Hae-Jin asked. "I'm trying, but this technology is beyond our current systems. It's like trying to listen to a conversation between computers that think 1,000 times faster than we do." The new Busan continued deeper into the solar system. Mars came into view and the crew gasped at what they saw. The red planet had been covered with a geometric pattern visible from space. Lines of silver and gold stretched across the surface, in perfect mathematical arrangements. "It's beautiful," Da-un whispered. "But what is it for?" "Defense," Kyung-ho said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "I've been analyzing the structures, and they all have one thing in common. They're positioned to protect something. All of these platforms, all of these energy networks, they're designed to defend the inner solar system." "Defend against what?" Hae-Jin asked. Before anyone could answer, Minho's equipment came alive with sound. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's from Earth." The bridge fell silent. After 2 weeks of wondering what had happened to their home planet, they were finally going to get answers. "Put it through," Hae-Jin ordered. A familiar voice filled the bridge. Dr. Sumin was one of Earth's leading quantum physicists. Her research had always been theoretical, dealing with ideas so advanced that most people could not understand them. But now she sounded tired and frightened. "This is Dr. Sumin broadcasting from Earth Defense Command. If you are receiving this message, you are human personnel returning to the Sol system. Welcome home. Please continue to the coordinates I am transmitting and prepare for immediate briefing." The message was brief, but it answered one important question. Earth was still there, still inhabited and still controlled by humans. Whatever had happened, humanity had not been destroyed or abandoned their home. As they followed the coordinates toward Earth, more details of the transformation became clear. The space around Earth itself was filled with orbital platforms connected by streams of energy. The moon had been covered with structures that pulsed with power. Everything was connected, all part of one enormous system. "It's like they turned the entire solar system into a single machine," Dongsu said. "But a machine designed to do what?" They landed at a spaceport that had not existed 2 weeks earlier. The facility was clearly new, built quickly but with impressive skill. Armed guards met them at the landing pad. Humans, but wearing uniforms and equipment that looked more advanced than anything in the galactic databases. General Boram was waiting for them in the briefing room. Hyejin had heard of her before. Boram was known throughout the galaxy as one of humanity's finest military minds. She had been involved in peacekeeping operations on dozens of worlds, always finding ways to end conflicts without massive bloodshed. But the woman who sat across from them looked like she had not slept in weeks. Her uniform was clean and pressed, but her eyes showed the strain of carrying enormous responsibility. "Captain Hyejin, thank you for coming," Boram said. "I know you have questions. I'm going to give you answers, but first I need you to understand something. Everything I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. The survival of not just humanity, but every species in this galaxy, depends on maintaining secrecy until we are ready." "Ready for what?" Hyejin asked. "War," Boram replied simply. "A war unlike anything this galaxy has ever seen." She activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy. At first it looked normal. Thousands of star systems, hundreds of different species, the familiar patterns of trade routes and political boundaries that had existed for centuries. Then Boram adjusted the display to show a wider view. Beyond the edge of their galaxy, something was approaching. It was massive, dark, and moving with purpose toward their spiral arm of stars. "We detected them 18 months ago," Boram explained. "Our deep space monitoring stations picked up gravitational anomalies beyond the galactic rim. At first we thought it was just a large asteroid or comet. Then we realized it was moving in a straight line toward us." The holographic display zoomed in on the approaching object. It was not a natural formation. It was clearly artificial, but built on a scale that dwarfed anything in their galaxy. Ships, if they could be called ships, that were larger than Earth's moon, structures that stretched for thousands of miles. "Who are they?" Dayun asked. "We call them the Void Devourers," Boram replied. "Our long-range sensors have tracked their path back through space. They've been traveling for millions of years, moving from galaxy to galaxy. Every place they visit becomes empty space. No stars, no planets, no life. Nothing." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. An enemy that destroyed entire galaxies was heading toward them, and somehow humanity had known about this threat for over a year. "Why didn't you warn the other species?" Hyejin asked. "We tried," Boram said. "We sent reports to the Galactic Council. We shared our data with scientists from other worlds, but they didn't believe us. The Velthari thought it was human paranoia. The Zix Collective said our sensors were malfunctioning. The Christarchs dismissed the threat as statistically insignificant. So you decided to prepare alone?" "We had no choice. The Void Devourers will reach our galaxy in approximately 6 weeks. If we're going to survive, if anyone is going to survive, we need to be ready. That meant transforming our entire civilization into a defense system." Boram showed them more images. Cities on Earth being evacuated to underground facilities. Entire populations relocating to hidden bases on asteroids and moons. The industrial might of humanity being focused on a single goal, building the largest weapon system ever created. "Every human facility in the galaxy has been contributing," Boram continued. "Mining operations, research stations, colonial governments. Everyone has been sending resources and information back to Earth. We've had to maintain absolute secrecy, which meant cutting all normal communications." "The other species think we abandoned them," Hyejin said. "I know, and that's causing its own problems. Wars are breaking out, old conflicts are restarting, but we couldn't risk the Void Devourers learning about our preparations. If they know what we're building, they might change their approach or accelerate their arrival." Hyejin looked around the room at her crew. They all wore the same expression, of shock and determination. Their home planet, their entire species, had been secretly preparing for the fight of their lives. "What do you need from us?" she asked. Boram smiled for the first time since they had arrived. "We need you to go back to the galaxy and convince the other species to help us. The defense system we've built is impressive, but it won't be enough on its own. We need every ship, every weapon, every mind in the galaxy working together. Will they listen to us after we've been silent for 2 weeks? They'll have to, Boram replied, because in 6 weeks the Void Devourers will be here, and if we don't stand together, we'll all fall separately. 3 days had passed since Earth stopped talking. The news had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species, every colony, every space station knew that something was wrong with the humans. Captain Hyejin stood on the bridge of her exploration ship, the New Busan. She had received urgent orders from the Galactic Council just hours ago. Her mission was simple but terrifying: travel to the Sol system and find out what happened to Earth. The New Busan was not a military ship. It was built for exploring new worlds and making contact with unknown species. But right now, it was the closest human vessel to Earth that could make the journey quickly. Every other human ship in the area had also gone silent. "Engineer Dongsu, how long until we can leave?" Hyejin asked. Dongsu looked up from his control panel. His face was pale with worry. Like everyone else, he had family on Earth. His parents lived in the city of Seoul. His sister worked at the space elevator that connected Earth to its orbital stations. He had not heard from any of them in 3 days. "The ship is ready, Captain. We can jump to hyperspace in 10 minutes, he replied. "Good. Da-Un, what do we know about conditions in the Sol system?" Da-Un was the ship's xenobiologist, an expert in alien life forms. But right now, she was using her skills to analyze the strange data they had received about Earth. The last automatic signals from the solar system stopped exactly 72 hours ago. All monitoring stations, all automated. Beacons, everything went quiet at the same time. That was the part that scared everyone the most. Earth had hundreds of automated systems that sent constant signals into space. Weather monitoring, solar activity reports, navigation beacons for incoming ships. These systems had worked perfectly, for centuries without any human attention. For all of them to stop at once meant something very big had happened. Kyung-ho, the weapons officer, spoke from his station. "Captain, I've been monitoring galactic communications. The situation is getting worse out there." He was right. As Earth's silence continued, the other species in the galaxy were starting to panic. Humans had been the peacekeepers, the negotiators, the ones who solved problems when aliens could not agree. Without humans to keep order, old conflicts were starting up again. The Krell Empire had declared war on the aquatic tribes of Hydros. The two species had been arguing about water rights for years, but humans had always managed to keep them talking instead of fighting. With Earth silent, diplomacy had failed. War fleets were already moving toward the disputed systems. The Zix Collective had begun expanding aggressively into neutral space. Their hive mind made them efficient at taking over new territory, but humans had always convinced them to respect the boundaries of other species. Now, with no human voices to object, the insect-like aliens were claiming system after system. Even worse, the Crystarchs had started consuming asteroids in disputed mining areas. These silicon-based life forms could eat rock and metal for nutrition, but human negotiated treaties had kept them from taking resources that belonged to other species. With Earth silent, the treaties seemed meaningless. "How long until all these conflicts turn into a full galactic war?" Hyejin asked. "Maybe 2 weeks, Kyung-ho answered. "The other species are scared. They don't know what happened to us, so they're preparing for the worst. Some think Earth was destroyed, others think we abandoned them. Either way, they're arming themselves." Hyejin felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The New Busan might be the only ship that could reach Earth and find out the truth. If they failed, the galaxy might tear itself apart with fear and confusion. "All stations prepare for hyperspace jump," she commanded. The ship's engines hummed to life. Around them, space twisted and bent as the New Busan entered the strange realm between dimensions that allowed faster-than-light travel. Stars became streaks of light, and the universe seemed to fold in on itself. While they traveled through hyperspace, Da-Yun continued studying the data. Something bothered her about the way Earth had gone silent. "Captain, I think there's something we missed." "What do you mean?" "Look at this timeline. Every single automated system in the Sol system stopped broadcasting at exactly the same moment. Not 1 second apart, not even a millisecond apart. Exactly the same time. Dong-su frowned. That's impossible. The solar system is huge. Light takes hours to travel from one side to the other. Even if something destroyed every station at once, we should see the signals stop at different times. Exactly, Diane said. Unless someone shut them all down on purpose. Someone with access to every system in the solar system. The implications were frightening. If Earth had chosen to go silent, it meant they were preparing for something. Something so important that they were willing to let the galaxy think they were dead or gone. Back at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Taeho was fighting a losing battle. Without Earth's support, his authority meant nothing. The alien species were starting to ignore human representatives completely. So Jin had tried everything she could think of to contact Earth. She had sent messages through relay stations, bounced signals off asteroids, and even tried to reach human colonies in other star systems. Nothing worked. It was as if every human facility in the galaxy had simultaneously decided to stop talking. Wu Bin was more worried about immediate threats. Several alien species had started positioning military ships near human colonies and trade routes. They claimed it was for protection, but it looked more like preparation for invasion. Sir, Wu Bin said to Taeho, we need to consider the possibility that some species might try to take over human territory while Earth is silent. Which species are you most worried about? Taeho asked. The Velthari have moved 3 battle fleets to the edges of human space. They say it's to maintain order, but their ships are in perfect position to attack our colonies. The Zix Collective is expanding faster than ever, and the Krell Empire is building up forces that could easily be redirected from their war with the aquatic tribes. It was a nightmare scenario. The galaxy's 3 most powerful military forces were all positioning themselves to fill the void left by Earth's silence. If they started fighting over human territory, it would spark a war that could destroy entire civilizations. Meanwhile, deep in space, the new Busan continued its journey toward Earth. The ship's crew worked in nervous silence, each person lost in their own thoughts about what they might find when they reached the Sol system. Daun made another disturbing discovery. Captain, I've been analyzing communication patterns from before Earth went silent. In the last few weeks, there was a significant increase in encrypted messages between Earth and all human facilities throughout the galaxy. What kind of messages? Hyejin asked. I can't decode them, but the pattern suggests coordination. Like Earth was sending instructions to every human colony, every space station, every research facility. And they were all sending acknowledgement signals back. Dong-su stopped his work and looked up. You mean Earth was planning something? Something that required the cooperation of every human in the galaxy? It looks that way, Da-un replied. Whatever made Earth go silent, it wasn't sudden. They were preparing for it. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Through the viewports they could see the familiar yellow star that had been humanity's home for thousands of years. But something was different about the solar system. Captain, Kyung-ho called out, his voice tight with shock. You need to see this. On the main display, an image of the outer solar system appeared. Where there should have been empty space and scattered asteroids, they saw something impossible. Massive structures stretched between the planets, connected by streams of energy that pulsed like the heartbeat of some enormous creature. What are we looking at? Hyejin whispered. I don't know, Daun replied. But it's definitely human technology, and it's beautiful. The solar system had been transformed into something magnificent and terrifying. Whatever Earth had been preparing for, it was bigger than anyone had imagined. The silence was not a sign of weakness or destruction. It was a sign that humanity was building something the galaxy had never seen before. Ambassador Taeho walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The massive room buzzed with voices from hundreds of different alien species. Some spoke through translators, others used light patterns, and a few communicated with strange, musical sounds. Taeho had been Earth's voice in this place for 5 years now. He knew every corner of this room, every face that belonged to the different worlds. Today felt different, though. Something was wrong, but he could not figure out what it was. The council meeting started like any other. The Velthari ambassador, a tall blue creature with 4 arms, complained about trade routes. The insect-like Zix collective buzzed angrily about mining rights. The water-breathing people from Hydros gurgled their concerns about pollution in shared space. Tejo listened to each complaint. This was normal. Every few months the same arguments happened. Earth always helped solve these problems. Humans were good at finding ways to make everyone happy. They talked a lot, sent messages constantly, and never gave up on making peace between angry aliens. But something felt empty today. Tejo touched the communication device on his wrist. Usually it beeped every few minutes with messages from Earth, updates about new ideas, questions about alien cultures, or just friendly greetings from other humans around the galaxy. The device had been quiet for 6 hours now. 6 hours without a single message from Earth. That had never happened before. So-Jin sat at the communication desk behind Tejo. She managed all the messages that came and went between Earth and the Council. Her job was never boring because humans never stopped talking. They always had something to say, some new idea to share, or some problem they wanted to help fix. She stared at her screen. The last message from Earth came at 800 hours that morning. It was just a simple daily report about weather and crop production. Nothing special. Nothing that suggested anything was wrong. Since then, nothing. No calls, no data streams, no emergency signals, no routine check-ins. The communication channels were open, but no one was using them. It was like Earth had just stopped existing, so Jin tried to contact Earth directly. She sent messages to the main government building, to the space stations around Earth, and to human colonies on nearby planets. All the messages went out fine, but no answers came back. The silence stretched on. Across the room, Wubin noticed the strange quiet too. He was a military man who had served with Earth Defense Corps before becoming a diplomatic helper. His job was to understand threats and keep humans safe in the galaxy. Right now, his instincts told him that something very bad was happening. Wubin had been in many dangerous situations. He knew the difference between normal quiet and dangerous quiet. This was dangerous quiet, the kind of quiet that came before terrible things happened. He watched the alien ambassadors. They had not noticed yet that Earth was silent. They were too busy arguing about their own problems. But they would notice soon, and when they did, they would start asking questions that no one could answer. The Velthari ambassador finished his speech about trade routes. He looked at Tai-Ho, expecting the usual human response. Humans always had ideas about how to fix trade problems. They would suggest new routes, better safety measures, or ways to share profits fairly. Tejo stood up slowly. He felt the weight of hundreds of alien eyes watching him. These creatures had learned to expect certain things from humans. They expected endless talking, constant suggestions, and non-stop efforts to solve everyone's problems. Earth is reviewing the trade route situation, Tejo said carefully. We will have an answer soon. It was a lie. He had no idea what Earth was doing. He had no way to contact his home planet. He was completely cut off, standing alone in a room full of aliens who trusted him to speak for his entire species. The Zix collective buzzed louder. Their translator drone spoke in its mechanical voice. Human delay unusual. Humans always respond immediately. Why silence now? So-Jin felt panic rising in her chest. The aliens were starting to notice. She tried again to contact Earth, sending emergency signals on every frequency she knew. Still nothing came back. The water people from Hydros made gurgling sounds that their translator turned into words. Human communication constant for 300 years. 6 hours silence creates concern. Are humans experiencing technical difficulties? Technical difficulties. If only it were that simple. So Jin knew Earth's communication systems better than almost anyone. They had backup systems for their backup systems. Multiple space stations, underground facilities, and orbital platforms all designed to keep Earth connected to the galaxy. For all of them to fail at once was impossible, unless something had destroyed all of them, or unless Earth had chosen to shut them down. Wubin moved closer to Tejo. He whispered quietly, "Sir, "We need to end this meeting. We need time to figure out what's happening." But ending the meeting would only make the aliens more suspicious. These species had grown used to human reliability. Earth never missed a meeting, never failed to respond to messages, and never left problems unsolved. The humans were the ones who kept the galaxy running smoothly. A new voice joined the conversation. Keth Moran, the senior Velthari ambassador, stood up. His forearms moved in patterns that showed deep concern. Human silence unprecedented. In 300 years of contact, humans never cease communication for more than standard hour. Current. Silence duration suggests serious problem. The room grew quieter. Other aliens began to pay attention. The crystarchs, made of living silicon, chimed musical notes that meant worry. The gas cloud beings from the nebula reaches pulsed with darker colors. Sojin tried one more time to contact Earth. She used the emergency frequency reserved for the most serious situations. The signal went out into space, traveling toward the small yellow star that was humanity's home. Nothing came back. Tejo realized that he had to make a choice. He could keep pretending that everything was normal, but the aliens would figure out the truth soon. Or he could admit that he had lost contact with Earth, which would cause panic throughout the galaxy. Neither choice was good, but lying would only make things worse later. "The Council will take a short break," Tejo announced. "Earth is experiencing some communication issues. We expect to resolve them soon." The alien ambassadors looked at each other with expressions that needed no translation. Worry, confusion, and fear crossed faces from a dozen different worlds. The humans were always talking, always connected, always available. For them to go silent meant something was terribly wrong. As the aliens filed out of the Great Hall, Sojin gathered her equipment. Her hands shook as she packed up the communication devices that had become useless. Somewhere out in space, Earth continued its orbit around the sun. But for the first time in 3 centuries, Earth was not talking. Wubin checked the security systems around the council building. If Earth was in trouble, the humans on Nexus Prime might be in danger too. Other species might blame them for whatever was happening. Or worse, they might try to take advantage of humanity's apparent weakness. The 3 humans stood alone in the empty council chamber. Outside, hundreds of alien species were probably sending messages to their homeworlds, reporting that the humans had gone quiet. News of Earth's silence would spread across the galaxy within hours, and none of them had any idea why it was happening. Tejo looked at the empty communication screen one more time. For his entire career, that screen had been full of messages, updates, and conversations with Earth. Now it showed only darkness. Somewhere in the galaxy, something had gone wrong. And Earth, the planet that never stopped talking, had finally fallen silent.